About 100 years after the Pilgrim Fathers set foot on Plymouth Rock, Lennox was settled by a few brave souls. After a few years, everyone gave up and left their farms. They would not return until the victory of the British in the French and Indian War. Eventually, Lennox was incorporated as a town in 1767. It was very important to those early settlers that a meeting house for the religious services would be built. The first meeting house was erected in 1770 and was located very near the site of the church on the hill. By 1805, it had fallen into disrepair, and the good folks realized that they needed a new building. At that time, there was no separation of church and state. All matters pertaining to church life were determined at the annual or special town meetings. A request was made at the town meeting to discuss the building of a more permanent meeting house, with an idea that it might be paid for by the town. However, at the end of the day, it was decided that the selling of pews was to pay for the church. With that settled, permission was given, and the project moved ahead. The builder was Benjamin D. Goodrich, a carpenter from Richmond. When completed in 1806, the interior was completely white and dominated by a large window, making fine use of natural light. The early services were very different from what is expected today. They would have no fires in the building, and sometimes it was so cold that the sound of feet stomping to keep warm would drown out the sermon. The sermon was long, lasting as long as an hour, and people came and they liked it. Once the speaker was the famous Reverend Henry Ward Beecher. The Sabbath was honored by these settlers. Food was prepared in advance, and no labor was allowed. And this was a very good thing for these early settlers, because there was so much to do to survive that if they were not forced to rest, they would probably have killed themselves with overwork. They did not celebrate Christmas, which was considered papist, which was a bad thing in those days. Of particular interest to the history of Lennox is the beautiful cemetery. Interned in that hallowed ground are many men who served in the American Revolution, including the two men honored on the obelisk in the center of town, Major General John Patterson and Major Isaiah Eggleston. Theodore Teddy Wharton, husband of the esteemed author, is buried there, as well as other members of high society in Lennox. There is a most interesting placard placed near the graves of Sergei Kusevitsky and his wife Olga. It is a testimonial of gratitude given by the Israel Symphony Orchestra, and there is a Star of David engraved upon it. When you walk among those graves, ponder the changes that have occurred in Lennox. Then glance upward at the huge clock that graces the turret and say, that has not changed. The meeting house of the first settlers still stands.